60 minutes of analytical review of the big stories, topical issues, and all the controversies around the world. I'm Somna Sambo. And now to the headlines. Aftermath of the Kuje prison break, the attack on the advanced team of the president and the Shiroro mining site attack, pressure mounts on presidency again to reject the security architecture of the country. It's Peter and Baba-Ahmed. That's the new slogan trending in Nigeria's politics as the Labour Party picks Datti Baba-Ahmed as the running mate of Peter Obi for the 2023 presidential election. Plus, Jose Eduardo dos Santos, Angola's second president who ruled the mineral-rich state for almost 4 decades, dies at the age of 79. After what can be said to be an audacious attack on the Kuje Correctional Facility by terrorists in which over 50 inmates were set free, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has been meeting with security chiefs and heads of other security agencies in the country. Nigerians were expecting a major shake-up to the security architecture of the country following what many believed was a failure of intelligence and lack of proactiveness on the part of security agencies, but there was no shake-up and no changes. Nigerians have been reacting to the outcome of the Security Council meeting, which they say did not address the problem on ground. Let's take a listen.
Various security incidents in the last few weeks, including the attack on the Kuje Correctional Facility, as well as that on the President's advance convoy, and the attack on a mining site in Shiroro local government of Niger State, have necessitated this Security Council meeting summoned by President Muhammadu Buhari. After almost 4 hours behind closed doors, Minister of Police Affairs Mohammed Dingyadi briefs journalists. He attributes superior weapons and large numbers of the attackers to the success of the attack on the Kuje facility.
And I want to assure you that all those who are supposed to play a role in ensuring that the attack is neutralized did the best that they could to neutralize it. I think what helped them was the number of people they came with and the superior weapons they came with, and because nobody anticipated it, the few people who were there guarding the place could not withstand the number that they came with. I think that was what happened.
After his visit to Kuje, President Buhari had demanded a comprehensive report on the incident. It also came to light that the president issued fresh directives to his service chiefs to investigate what happened and to forestall a recurrence.
Mr. President is surprised that what happened in Kuje actually took place in spite of all the security arrangements that have been made to ensure that such an incident does not happen. We are assuring the nation and Nigerians in general that arrangements have been made to ensure that full investigations are carried out and to ensure that a repeat of the incidences will not occur. The service chiefs have been given very clear directives to ensure that adequate measures are taken, not only to investigate what happened, but also to take steps to forestall the occurrence of such instances.
For those expecting that heads may roll due to the incident, they may still have to wait and see. Meanwhile, the president has departed Abuja to his home in Daura, Katsina State for the Salah holiday.
All right, thank you so much, Adeswa, for that report, which aired earlier on Friday. Will changing the service chiefs again address the security lapses in the country? Is there something new that can be done to address these issues that have kept the country talking about what needs to be done and then done urgently? We have been made to understand here at Arise News that 2 policemen have been arrested and are currently being investigated by the police authorities after there was a communication that was intercepted that these police officers, investigative police officers, were communicating with some of those that actually broke into Kuje prison. Well, these arrests are still ongoing. Some of the inmates have been arrested. Some of them have been brought back, and we have just also learned that one of them was rearrested in Nasarawa State, and he will be brought back to continue his detention in that facility. But is it time for us to reject the security architecture in the country? Well, we have in the studio Patrick Agbambu, who is the security analyst and publisher of Security Watch Africa. Thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us.
Thank you.
Is it time for police reforms? Because the police is supposed to be the one in charge of internal security in the country. But we've seen that even the soldiers that have been saddled with this responsibility, including the civil defense, don't seem to have been able to measure up to some of these terrorists, and the terrorists have understood the psychology of the average Nigerian security personnel, and that's why we could have about 300 of them coming with about 100, like we've learned, staying in one part, another 100 staying in one part, another 100 staying in one part, and they were able to do this job that is making a lot of Nigerians to be worried because there are some criminals on the streets.
Yeah, it was actually a very sad situation. It's not something that any Nigerian should be proud of. I have spoken about it, and I have actually said it's a reflection of the time we are right now, and also a reflection of the failure of intelligence in Nigeria. Not just.
But we learned intelligence was provided by the DSS to the correctional service.
Yes,
but nothing was.
Nothing was done. When we talk about intelligence, there are actionable intelligence and there are timely intelligence. You could have intelligence that does not speak specific, and I'm privileged to know about the intelligence that the DSS provided, which is also general over intelligence in Abuja and all that. It was not specific in actual fact, and that is the reality. And so, but more in the bigger intelligence that needed, like I always say, it's the community intelligence. You cannot rule it away. The guys who committed the atrocity did not just disappear and appeared and strike. They have been there, and from information gathered, they were there for some days, not just one day.
So they were hibernating within the area, probably in forests and all of that.
Those were the intelligence that could have helped to prevent it. It's, so when we talk about intelligence, and also read Mr. President's tweet talking about intelligence, not being happy with intelligence. Those are the intelligence situation that needs to be corrected. Some people have said different reasons why the communities are not relating or freely giving information to the security agency, lack of confidence and trust and all that. So we have charged the government and the security agencies to try and buy this community to themselves, and also for the people to understand that this is not the jail attack, it's not the criminals versus the security agencies. It's an attack against all Nigerians, because these people that are on the street could cause mayhem in any part of the country, and we are all victims. So we should be able to let the people to understand that it's very, very important to give intelligence that is timely and actionable. If somebody says something will happen in a location, for instance, and not specific, it doesn't help totally.
All right, now let's talk about the issues of the police, because I mean that's where the primary focus is on, and I know you've done a lot of things with the Nigerian police. How come it's difficult for the police to operate within a 50 to 100 kilometer radius and get some actionable intelligence, like you have said, on these persons? If they actually moved about 300 person moving around without through forests and all of that, they will definitely have to end up either on a highway or somewhere where they now board vehicles and then move very fast and all of that. How come for days now, apart from this person that was arrested in Nasarawa, one of the inmates in the Kuje prison, we haven't seen so much of the terrorists themselves being arrested? How come we don't have I mean, it's confusing actually, but I just have to let you know that a lot of Nigerians are worried that, you know, before we used to have a lot of police patrols everywhere and so on. So we thought that by now, at least, if not for anything, the police should be able to track where these about 300 persons, including those that they discharge, are moving towards.
Okay, maybe I should tell you that not more than one of the person that is talked about has been arrested. I know of authoritatively that much more have been arrested, and for security reasons, information is not being provided for now.
Well, that's some sort of good news.
Because the more you give the information, the more you are making the other people you are searching for to keep running, and you rather give them false hope that we are not doing anything until you get hold of them. And that is the true situation. I know of that. Before I came to the studio, I had to make some inquiries to find out this, and that is it's a cheering news quite well. But my position always I've always been concerned about preventive security, not chasing it's more expensive to chase the criminals after they have committed their crimes. It's very expensive. Why couldn't we stop it? What should be done? What was missing? Now we're going to spend much more to be able to try to arrest them back. Some of them could even commit some more crime before you even get them back and all that. So those are the issues. And like you pointed out, the Nigeria's police force is the lead agency in internal security quite well. But you also know that during the first tenure of the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, he gave authority or powers to the now Nigerian Correctional Services to form an armed unit that should protect security for the outer periphery of this then prison, but now correctional services. And so there was a big drawdown in the presence of police within that locality, because these people have, in last year when prison breaks and prison attack became rampant, there was this collaborative arrangement that was made, police made.
Yeah, by the Minister of Interior, including Civil Defense and all of that.
But again, it didn't work out well because there was no coordinating office to synergize this, because Minister of Interior controls Civil Defense, correctional services, immigration and all that. Yes, each of these have their arms, but the police is in another ministry. And so they need to come to provide the second round buffer to the situation that is. And most times, but I would say that the blame for the failure of the intelligence to prevent this falls squarely on the shoulder of the divisional police headquarters in charge of Kuje, the area
because
commander.
We learned, I mean, there's a police very close by the
people
police
that
station.
should have been able to trigger off what could help to prevent this from happening.
And now you've raised a very important observation. I remember that there was an effort to actually put the police in the Ministry of Interior, and it was objected. I think it was Dambazao who tried to make that happen, but I mean, there was a lot of frustration, and of course that was how he was eventually eased out, and that ended. If the police, the Nigerian police force, is included in the Ministry of Interior, would this help synergize that issue better and create better collaboration between these paramilitary agencies and that? Because in other countries, actually, the police is usually under the purview of the Minister of Interior.
Yes, Nigeria's situation sadly is quite, let's say, unique, or quite. I can understand it. I can't understand it because, like I will always say, there are places we can see what happens, where you must have a coordinating office. In all these things we are saying, the bulk of the blame falls on the table on the office of the National Security Advisor, whose responsibility is to coordinate. Because if you talk about, we have the Ministry of Defense, we have the Ministry of Police Affairs, we have the Ministry of Interior that controls all this, and even the road safety, which is also part of the security architecture, is under the Ministry of Transport and all that. So we have them differently, but we have the National Security Advisor's Office, which is a central body that should coordinate in terms of situations like this. Not the minister. The ministers are primarily for the administrative purposes and contracting and other overhead issues. So, but in terms of operationalization, there is an office in the Office of the National Security Advisor that should work, that should do what it should do. But unfortunately, the failure.
Yeah, I mean, because it's supposed to serve like a clearinghouse for all of these security matters. And so that means even the National Security Advisor is complicit in some of these issues.
I would
and
say so.
We haven't seen so much of the National Security Advisor talking or doing a lot, although we've seen some previous trainings. But I think Mr. President, who appoints him, knows better, because security matters are not supposed to be made public. But as we try to round off this conversation, what are the sort of reforms that we need? Because I still emphasize the police plays a critical role in all of this. I can remember the Inspector General of Police trying to revive the issue of community policing after being given orders by the president, when there was this talk about state police, and the presidency kept saying that no, not state police, but the issue of community policing. What's the stage? What should be done better than what we have now?
I think the first step, and which I think is should be done urgently, is buying the people. The police or whichever security agency must get the people on their side. Today, to speak, most communities, most people do not have confidence in the security agencies. They will rather not give information. Until you get that done, no matter the kind of security arrangement you have on ground, it will not work, because the security is in the common palace. They said they are not angels. You know, they can't.
But what has happened to that policy itself, that community policing policy that the government said to the IGP should be implemented?
It's in place. I'll tell you, it's in place, and I must commend that initiative. Now the only challenge is that because they're even wearing uniform that looks a bit of policing. I would prefer those days when we were quite younger. We used to hear, we are afraid of so many people.
The CIDs,
because the CIDs, you don't know who they are, but they're on the street. I told people the earlier stage in the late 90s, when we used to come into Abuja, the cab drivers are CIDs, the shoe shiners are CIDs. But we have left all this, and that is the biggest problem. The farmer in the market, the trader in the market is a CID, they gather information. But today we don't have it any longer. Those are the issues we should go back to.
Okay, lastly, I won't let you go without asking you this. The Correctional Service itself is the primary agency for protecting the prisons. We've seen a lot of prison breaks here and there. What exactly needs to be done to help keep prison inmates better, so that we don't see insurrection, whether from inside or people coming from outside to attack such facilities?
A lot has to be done. We're lucky that we're not having insurrection from inside. Now all the prisons are filled up and overflowing, and the epidemic and a lot of crises. Yes, the people managing it are trying, but the periphery, the outside, you need to have visited the Kuje prison itself. I have been there. I've seen that it doesn't even word of.
You went there on a visit, though, so that you need to correct that impression. You went there on a visit.
Yes.
Not that you are an inmate.
All right. Yes, I've been there on a visit in the line of my duty, and I've seen that you cannot ward off anybody. The fencing is so low. In those days, when you build and put your fence, they'll say like you are in a prison yard. But today, we don't have that. The only place we have that is a bit secure is the Kirikiri maximum prison, because you see a semblance of a prison.
Yeah, but this one is supposed to be a medium prison, though.
It's not the same. It's not, and that is the sadness. Then secondly, I've said that, listen, bringing these hardened terrorists to the federal capital was an act that is not security. I don't know who advised them. I know that they have a holding place in Jeba in Niger State and some other places. But bringing it here, it was like a time bomb, and we have seen it. And
And
so
putting all of them in one particular
place,
facility.
It's not done anywhere. It's not done anywhere. In some places, you put some of these people in islands. Well, that's where we have US, have the Guantanamo Bay, and some other places. You don't put them where they can. There's easy access to the people. So there's a failure. So there's a lot needs to be done in terms of changing the state of our prison, or else we'll continue to experience it.
All right. I think there was this talk of having a prison in an island in Nigeria here, somewhere off the coast of Lagos. Yes. I don't know what actually happened, but I think it's time for the authorities to revisit some of those issues, because, I mean, if it's been encircled by water, I don't think these guys would have that boldness to be able to storm there. But we must thank you so much, Patrick Agbambu, who is a security consultant and publisher, Security Watch Africa. We must thank you for being on the show. Well, it's a Peter Obi and Yusuf Datti Baba-Ahmed ticket. We'll be taking a look at all of this when we come back from this break. Stay with us.
When we wanted to move faster and see more of the world, we found a way. We also found ways to connect beyond boundaries. And when an unprecedented pandemic tried to derail us, we found ways to get ahead.
Are we ready?
Ready.
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 Ready. Ready.
As your bank, we have stayed proactive, creating dynamic solutions and leveraging cutting-edge technology to drive global expansion into new markets. We rolled up our sleeves to be human together, doing more, innovating smarter, and always showing up for you. So come on board, let's give you more.
Access, more than banking.
There's no other animal as courageous and majestic as the lion. But with only 50 lions left in Nigeria, they may soon just be a memory. When snares are used for bushmeat, we rob the lions of their food and risk maiming them for life. So please say no to illegal bushmeat and help protect the lions. Keep them wild and keep us safe.
Here's a card we no go give you stress at all. Zero waiting, zero queue. First banking, petrol card. Here's a card we no go give you wahala. Zero trouble now for you. First banking, tell off it if tell off it spoiler. Who won't break them? Where you want say now only you get them. Nothing fit do one. Sharp, sharp payment not the way. Swipe they go, you know the way. Veteran card with the sweet body. Veteran card we know the shape person. We put you first again. First banking veteran card we put you first again. Generate your virtual card we put you first again. First banking virtual card we put you first again. Just generate your virtual card.
We started our journey over 7 years ago, connecting travelers to their favorite destinations. Since then, we've revolutionized how we want our passengers to feel while flying. That is why we've introduced our brand new Embraer 195E2 aircraft. We are on a mission to add new destinations to our ever-increasing fleet. Our Boeing 777 will take you on an international journey. Mumbai, Guangzhou, London, Johannesburg. And now, Airpeace is adding a new destination, Dubai.
If you're gonna fly, then you should fly with us on
Airpeace flies you from all our domestic routes to Dubai from Lagos at no additional cost.
very warm welcome to This Week. I'm Somna Sambo, and we've just been on break, and we're moving straight to politics now. It's Peter Obi and Yusuf Datti Baba-Ahmed ticket, which will be on the ballot for the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election. A former senator, a PhD holder in economics and educationist, Baba-Ahmed is bringing a lot to the table for Peter Obi. He was unveiled by the presidential candidate and the party's leadership in Abuja.
Joined the Labour Party, the party has become a movement of some sort and has been gaining acceptance across the country and beyond. With the deadline for the nomination of running mate closing in, who becomes the joint ticket holder with Obi has been a subject of discussion, but all that has been put to rest with the unveiling of Datti Baba-Ahmed as Obi's running mate.
Labour Party is a party. Nigeria go better. When Labour Party come the rule. Labour Party.
Today is not a day for long speech, but to present to Nigerians that we have the best material to pilot the affairs of this country to where it ought to be. I have maintained before, and I will reiterate, that the problem of the country is leadership inflicted.
He brings to this mission a great wealth of experience from the background of a private sector to public sector and a global knowledge that will help in our journey of turning around this country. Today, our country is facing so many challenges. By the end of this year, we will need 100% of our revenue will not be enough to service our debts.
Datti Baba-Ahmed, in his acceptance speech, describes his nomination as an honor, one that will help achieve a dream of a new Nigeria.
The undeniable, unchallengeable, fundamental reason for being on this ticket is to rescue Nigeria. Good job. And it goes logically and without saying that you can only rescue that which is in trouble. Nigeria is in a great deal of trouble. Yes. I cannot afford not to be part of the movement to rescue Nigeria. The second reason is that I believe in the greatness of Nigeria. I believe there will be peace and prosperity. I believe Nigerian people will unite.
With the running mate issue now sorted out, all is set for the party to battle with the APC and the PDP. Yusuf Datti Baba-Ahmed was born in 1975. He holds a PhD in economics from the University of Westminster. At 28, he was elected into the House of Representatives and became a senator at 36. He is a strong campaigner against corruption.
Thank you so much. I have in the studio Arise analyst Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, who is a professor of political science, and Dr. Sam Amadi, who's an associate professor of law, joining us to take a look, if I may call it, a clinical analysis on this gentleman who has been nominated by Peter Obi. And I'll start with you, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Yusuf Datti Baba-Ahmed has been chosen by Peter Obi. It's not necessarily this individual that Peter Obi wanted first. He wanted an alliance with Kwankwanso, but unfortunately the talks broke down. What do you say of this nomination?
Well, first of all, I think it's okay to tell what I know about this person. You know, I see him as a very pious, prayerful, gossip person. Somebody with lots of vision, setting up one of what has come out to be one of the best private universities in Africa, in his late 30s, and he has sustained this, for nearly 11 years now, and the university is growing. And on top of that, of course, as an individual, he has also set up what has come out, what's been adjudged as the best hospital, private hospital in Africa by landmarks and much else. At a personal level, over the years, he has demonstrated the fact that he's a disciplinarian, he's a focused person, and one who has been able to manage, a set of people that you would describe as critically minded. I'm talking about intelligentsias, intellectuals, scholars, and of course, you know what it means when a young person, somebody in his late 30s, strolling through 40s onto his 50s, managing this kind of people, So it combines a lot of things, focus, passion, determination, and of course, discipline. So to that extent, in terms of character, I think he fits the bill. Do not forget intelligence as well, and remember his illustrious heritage, as the son of a famous Islamic scholar who's been able to combine that, becoming cosmopolitan, welcoming a lot of people around him, people from his other ethnic group. Some of his closest aides I know personally because I work for him, are people who are from other ethnic stuff, including expatriates. And of course, he's carried on over the years at this level. In the private sector, he has largely excelled. And that's why he's always proud saying that whatever he has earned, whatever he has earned it legitimately. So if he brings these private sector achievements onto the public sector, of course, through governance, of course, it's going to be a welcome development, considering what we've been longing for in our country over the years, the lethargy or the part of the public sector. I mean, the way things are managed, resources are being wasted. Nobody believes that anything public should be prioritized. The absence of prudence. Such people, I think, are welcome. As a new breed person, with due respect to what Babangida would say. But most importantly, Sumner, yes, we know we have talked about some of these characteristics that he has. Fine, but of course, it's not all about. Aristotle told us that politics is not about rationalism. Most times, about populism. But unfortunately, in the Nigerian system, monism has also been added. Where money determines everything. But in terms of quality, in terms of character, I think Datti Baba-Ahmed fits the bill.
Okay, and I come to you, Dr. Samamade, just like I said earlier. Peter Obi went on a different search from Datti Baba-Ahmed, but he has eventually come back to settle on him. Yeah, Datti Baba-Ahmed is cosmopolitan, like he has said. He has a rich network, but both of them are private sector persons who are now wanting to fully come into the public sector. Although Datti Baba-Ahmed served in the House of Rep and then eventually a short term as a senator, so that counts to him as a public sector experience too. And then Peter Obi, two-term governor, that counts for him, but their lives have largely been in the private sector. How do you think the political scene is receiving this ticket?
Well, I think it's on two different levels. I mean, for the Peter Obi supporters, the obedient, this is it aligns with their base. Basically, they are anti-politics. They are pushing, even though Peter Obi is staunchly a politician. If you're a governor for 8 years, and since then he has been in the PDP up until now, he was part of Jonathan's henchmen, if you like, strongly relied upon. So clearly, in a normal, rational sense, he's a politician, But in the narrative of...
Although he tries to present himself as someone who is from outside the system,
yes.
But I mean, it's indisputable that he has been a part of the system.
Different kinds of politicians. I mean, Obama was a politician. Junior senator, the state senator, and president. But they're those who fancy themselves as outsiders in terms of the values they bring. So
is he a leftist in a conservative system?
No, he is actually a right of the center. But what I'm saying is that he sees himself as somebody who is coming from outside, challenging a norm. But the point is that for the B's supporters, this is a good choice because young, private sector, highly educated like P2B, smart, articulate. So it fits into that narrative. For the establishment politician, this is not a big deal. Hasn't got very good political capital.
So the regular politicians don't feel threatened.
Because first, yes, exactly. They will feel threatened. No, they will feel threatened because if there's younger votes, which is going to be in play big for B, that's loss of power. But I'm saying they will reckon him as, first, he was a House of Reps member. Then briefly he ran for Senate and was moved by tribunal, okay? And then he ran for presidency in 2019. He had a very bad outing in terms of votes delegates. Anybody can get the same result. And he just election, he just ran for primary.
Yeah, for governorship, he couldn't run for the primary because he felt it was too monetized.
At the point he left.
And he had
so
to
the one
leave.
it's not a conventional kind of maybe Kokanso, Shekau, and such, or Ganduje, or Erufai,
Ganduje, and all of
that. Those are politicians that maybe because they have had governorship offices, they have been able to create large political following, patronage. So it's how you're looking at it. If you're looking from the obedient point of view, great choice for them. Looking from the other side, again, like you said, there were efforts, I understand, by Peter Obi also to sign on other northern heavyweights. It didn't work. People probably not comfortable, probably not sure of themselves, but he got this. Initially it looked like, wow, this is not light to it, but in essence, this deepens the symbolism. And in this election, having a base that's enthusiastic, if you look at the way they have gone with the story, his narrative is very persuasive, compelling, and first, you must make sure your base is happy. This choice satisfies the base.
Yeah,
then
because
you
they
know
want an educated, articulate VP,
you know,
someone who can take over if Peter Obi is not there.
In governance time,
it's a different ballgame. Okay,
but
and I'll bring you in, Prof. When you talk of structure, they say Peter Obi doesn't have structure. And it's the same thing that's been said of Yusuf Datti Baba-Ahmed. Some have said that if election is held in Zaria, where he comes from, he can't even win from his polling units. What do you say about some of those kind of talks, which is like a very tough challenge for Datti Baba-Ahmed, because he would have to prove himself?
Somna, I think the world, if you look at the history of the world, it's always full of firsts, And one of them alluded to it recently, always full of firsts. And of course, once upon a time begins a story. Something that has not happened before, it's not a guarantee that it cannot happen in the future. There's a possibility that the narrative around our story may change. And of course, who says that these two individuals cannot bring about this change? I'm just saying it's a possibility. Yes, it could be tough, it could be Herculean, but again, when we talk about structure, what are we really talking about? Are we talking about physical structure, or are we talking about physical, tangible structure, or intangible ones, the one that is not physical? But structure essentially is about people. It shouldn't be about buildings, or about monuments, about castles, It should be about people.
Yeah, and structure in Nigerian politics means you have governors, you will have senators, House of Rep members, state houses of assembly members, local government chairmen, and all of that. Those who are heavyweights, who are sub-leaders, who will help you on election day to reach out to other sub-leaders and to ensure that you're not rigged out in your locality.
And of course, those ones are very influential. They can make things happen. It can be a deficiency, it can also be a minus. But when a new narrative is about to happen, when the story is about to change, it's also possible to imagine that the people, can become the new structure. Because those officials we have also mentioned they also rely on the people. They rely on the people to make things happen. So it's beyond that is to also make the point that we are having these individuals, the Labour Party. For me, it expands a range of options, broadens our notion about political electionary process in this country, and perhaps limits our chances of giving excuses in the future.
Yeah, but what kind of pressure do you think Baba-Ahmed will be this time around to deliver right from his polling unit to his ward and even his state for Peter Obi
I think the pressure is
before the region? Because the reason why Peter Obi chose him specifically from the region coming from the Northwest is because there's a teeming number of voters that actually decide how elections go in this country. So the Northwest is the vote bank of several political parties. And so there will be a lot of pressure on him. So how much
that's
do you think he can deliver?
that we expect to be on him. It's also going to be on NNPP. And it's going to be on other political parties as well.
Including the APC, which is in there.
All of them still have enough. They still have a time in their hand. We have about 7-8 months to go. So there's still enough time for mobilization, for contact making, for networking, and for the expansion of their logistics, as the case could be. Perhaps, maybe maybe I'm sure they're not going to rest on their oars. They should,
but
be walking around the
I just hope they don't go
happen,
into we don't give shishi philosophy, because the Northwest is the vote bank of the APC, PDP over the years, and these two large parties have been threatened by the NMPP and the Labour Party now. How much pressure do you think there is on Datti Baba-Ahmed as someone coming from the Northwest to deliver that huge vote bank to the Labour Party?
I think there is also a measure of realism here and managing expectation. I think, first, every candidate has to have a vice president. So whether you find the heavy hitter or the lightweight, you just have to have a deputy on the ticket. Second, like you said, it depends how you look at structure. I mean, there will be this debate around structure. And what I see is that if there will be movement and the narrative around this disruption and discontinuity,
or revolution, political revolution,
grows as it's growing. Let's watch the next two. It builds up to become a heavy tornado. One of the importance that you see the youths and children probably partially convincing their parents. And that happened with Obama, you said in the US. When the youth movement carried Obama, some of the other what they call the super delegates, who are institutional delegates,
the establishment,
they came and said, some of their college kids came back very passionate and said, look, we are going here, Daddy. You just have to go here. And some of them changed because they couldn't, but those Europe, here our culture, I don't see many kids convincing their parents not in Nigeria the way kids in Washington, New York will convince their parents. But essentially, we should look at structure as permeable. It's changing now. The young ones are building movements around town, estates, and building physical movement. Will they be able to challenge the established political movement? I'm not too sure, but we'll wait and see how it builds. So I agree that there will be concern around Datti Ahmed's capacity to win election in his constituency in state. And I think
or deliver the region itself.
It's for now, it's not. If you're going to do a bet, I won't bet on him delivering the region in a region that has both on the AP side, the gang DJs, the Erufai on the Atiku side,
the Suleimidos,
the Tambuwas and others. I'm not going to bet on him to deliver that. But this election will be an election of cumulatives. So if the OB movement does extremely well among the young population and do well in the south and north central, assuming, and then in the northwest, they are competitive, then they are on their way to winning. So it's not just about whether you deliver a zone. It's actually about whether you're going to do well across zones. So the movement, OB's campaign is still the third. If I'm rating possible winners today, I would say the PDP, the APC, and Labour, and NNP as it is. But 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, they can expand the lead, or he can close the lead and get to win.
Okay, the APC's presidential candidate just came back from his trip yesterday, and the PDP's national chairman just came back. We're waiting Atiku's arrival too. They haven't been speaking, and just like the presidential primaries, I mean, you know, the big guys, they come in towards the last moment. But right now, strategic thinking is ongoing. Now, for you to become president in this country, you need 4 out of 6 geopolitical zones in the country. That's what we've seen, especially in the last 2 under Buhari and then Jonathan. Do you think that the Labour Party can deliver southeast, south, southwest, and then maybe north central, and then fight in the northwest, just like he has said? Or do you think that the VP nominee can deliver maybe the northwest and northeast, and then an OB can deliver southeast and south? This is a tough choice ahead of this ticket.
Really, but we're still in the realm of permutation. And like we said, they still have all the parties, as the case could be, they still have time to plan. APC somehow is still in the quandary with respect to its vice president, vice presidential pick, and of course, PDP hasn't really rested on their oars as well, but so the permutations it's okay for us to continue to make these permutations, but there's still time on our hands, as the case could be. But most importantly, we cannot really be arithmetic to say, okay, this is what's going to happen with respect to this zone and that zone on the basis of what has been happening in the past.
Yeah, but from what you are saying, the obedient movement, what do you think is happening? Because, I mean, a lot of Nigerians are saying that the political demography is shifting. And if it's shifting, the reality has to be explained. What do you think can happen? Do you think that analogy can be pushed aside this time around, considering that the Labour Party claims that its supporters are national, not regional.
And there's a very good explanation that I've also had them give severally. And one is that the average Nigerian worker, the average Nigerian farmer, the average Nigerian person, that does a 9 to 5, is naturally, a member of the Labour Party. That person belongs to them. So if they're able to mobilize these people across sections of the country.
Prof, is that debatable?
That's their position as a case. That's their position. And of course, there might be reason in that ordinarily. But if they can, look, I'm a communications person, if they can consolidate that through appropriate messaging, I think it can permeate the dimensions of the nation's voting population. We also know that the bulk of Nigeria's population are in the rural areas. How well can they get to this section of voters beyond the netizens, beyond the urban elites, beyond the youths, beyond those who are in Lagos in the urban centers, as the case could be? How well can they get to all these people, all this section of voters? If they can get their acts right in this regard, do a lot more mobilization, beyond the platform for the elites. I think they might be able to make some mark, they might make some inroad going towards the north. As a case from what we see now, it seems their predominant support seems to be in the southern part of the country. But nobody is saying that they cannot come northwards as well. Do not forget that Yusuf Datti Baba-Ahmed is from an influential northern family. The father was reputable as an Islamic scholar, and of course he can leverage on that. And of course he has also established himself, strong network in politics, in business, and in education as well. He has 2 universities, one in Abuja, another one in Kano, and one a very sound hospital as well. So he has this network that he can leverage on. The typical northern elites, they actually like him for his guts. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this in confidence. They like him for his guts, for his courage. In being epistemic. Broad-minded, cosmopolitan, and doing the bit he has done, even as a young person at 53, setting up a university, like I said, at 38, 39.
And so I come back to you, Dr. Sam Amadi. The political demography is changing, like we all have agreed here, but is the obedient movement just an internet sensation, as the conservative politicians are making it to look?
No, it can't be. You see, yesterday I had a conversation with a staunch APC member, the campaign manager of Uchemoto's governorship campaign in Imo State. He called me. He's my close friend. I said, look, something's happened. I said, what's going on here? He actually inquired about the VP. I said, he's a great guy, brilliant and accomplished. He now made this point that he asked his younger son about politics. And the guy said he's an obedient. He said, what do you mean? Don't you know where I belong to? I'm APC. He says, I'm obedient. He said, ask my senior brother. The guy asked him, say, call your first son. Ask where he is. He called the first son. The first son says he's obedient. And he's organizing, he has set up a support group with 10 people, registered, they're now 500. So it's not just only internet, to be fair. Look, the crisis, what caused Obi's movement is a failure of PDP APC to play new politics. For the past, since 1999, our posts have been trapped in stasis in this transactional politics.
But isn't that, Dr. Sam, you've raised a very key point. Isn't that because of the long military rule? Because of the long military rule, a lot of people couldn't have political opportunities, and that's why you can hear Bola Tinubu saying it's my turn.
No, it's also because of the lack of creativity and innovation of these politicians, and lack of intelligence to understand that, look, dynamics are shifting. Look at this country is almost like
so
lost.
It's time for new politicians.
This time is lost. This country is almost look at the crisis we are facing. So the politics of is my turn. The politics of are supposed to be the VP. We saw governors stream to Port Harcourt. I mean, that's shameful. Everybody's thinking only about where do I plug in and get. So we have created this gap between public expectation and politics, and that's what the people are feeling. So yes, will he win? I don't know. Maybe not. But look, I can predict that no matter what happens, this movement has changed politics for Nigeria.
Yeah. So
if they don't win, there will be the real opposition that we didn't get in the last 7 years, because they are totally counter culture. And you see, what is happening here is that they're going to push PDP APC do the campaign to now meet up to the expectation, start speaking a new language.
Okay,
so
now,
either way,
just
it's
quickly
a plus.
before we move on to the next topic, I mean, we've seen some violent rhetoric too among the supporters.
Yeah.
How do we ensure that if, for example, this ticket doesn't win in the 2023 election, Peter Obi can be able to sustain them to the next general election? And then how do we ensure that because if things don't go their own way, they don't become violent, and then we have a situation like it's happening in Sri Lanka where the government itself has lost, although that's a different scenario. But I mean, a lot of people are angry because of economic issues and all of that. And if things are not well properly managed with politics and all of that, it can just be.
Let me make this point maybe
so very quickly. Yeah.
First, I think that it's very, very sad that there's a high level of intolerance. And Obi has spoken against it. PDP has been differential, APC has been, the leadership has been very well. All the APC, PDP and Labour Party, the leaders have been very well behaved. But you see, these young people who are very angry, understandably, should realize that anger will force them to lose tactics and focus. And what's going to happen is that
like it happened with NSAS, especially.
So if they don't win, if they see that they're not making endro, they may resort to violence. My worry is that at the end of this movement, if there's no pathway to victory, we might see escalation of violence against the state, because the narrative will be that the old politicians have blocked us again.
Yeah,
so there's need to start changing that perception so that they know that, look, they, even though they are not politicians, they can play the game, play loose, and have a long plan, strategy.
All right, very quickly before we go to this next issue.
So, well, a statement is being made, as the case could be. We are moving towards a new change. Our history is being rewritten, sort of. We are moving away, from the old breed to a new breed, of well-educated contestants. People who are very exposed, people who can speak to facts and give us specifics on how to change our story, from one of, underdevelopment to development. And of course, these are the few aspirants, this presidential candidates, vice presidential candidates, that have faced us on television, in the public sphere.
Yeah, and the other conservative politicians haven't been saying anything.
They've not been saying anything. Of course, they tell us, they talk through their aides. But now that's why we're saying that we are seeing the story is changing. A new narrative is coming, and it's a welcome development. It's also good, for the advancement of our democracy. And of course, it's going to take us somewhere. If not in 2023. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's why some people are saying that they should know that it can go A or Z, and start preparing for that reality. Well, we'll have to move on quickly to the next story before we round off this show. Angola's longest-serving leader, Jose Eduardo dos Santos, has died at the age of 79 in a Barcelona clinic in Spain, according to a statement by the country's presidency. He died on Friday after a prolonged illness. Now, a dominant and influential figure in Angolan and African politics for more than 30 years, Dos Santos was the country's second president. His 38-year-old stint in power left a legacy that continues to divide opinions inside and outside Angola. Zedu, as he was affectionately known after his long presidential term, had been in exile in Spain since late 2017 when he formally retired from political life, leaving power to his successor, the current president of Angola, João Lourenço. Well, I come to you, Prof. What do you make of this, the death of this long-term ruler? I mean, he had this overwhelming stature over Angola.
It's another unfortunate death. Of course, with our 79, he has lived a good life. He has lived literally long enough, more than the biblical age of at least cause at 10. But of course, politically as well, he has done very well. He was a committed ally of Agostinho Neto, and of course he served him as foreign minister, participated in the liberation struggle, and of course in his period he was influential in Southern African politics, disrupted the politics of countries around him, Zaire for instance, and of course he made a mark in the shaping of economic ideologies, moving away from communism to liberal socialism, in a way that is original to a typical African country, Angola that is. So he did very well for his country, and in the definition of the ideology of the African developmental paradigm, as the case could be. Okay,
Prof. Dos Santos actually had issues of corruption here and there, I mean, with his daughter and all of that. The oil-rich country of Angola, they did profit so much from Dos Santos' rule, or he just did his better and left?
Well, I think as one foreign paper put it, Dos Santos brought peace and took the world. but primarily his legacy will be mixed. Like I said, for 30 years he fought civil war with UNITA, backed by the US and of course Russia backed MPLA. But magnanimous and statesmanly. When the war ended, he granted reprieve to his opponents, gave them land and assets and got them established well, and then stepped down 5 years ago, thereabout, voluntarily handed over to one of his aides. Interestingly, turned around, the aide started probing his government.
Yeah, man, it was very funny.
I think arrested or tried his son, and then had the asset of his daughter
Isabel
confiscated. And now the daughter has asked that the hospital should not release his body until further notice. But primarily, he will be remembered as the African leader who fought hard and brought peace. Typical of African leaders, stole so much or got himself involved in so much corruption that today, instead of celebrating a man who defeated the rebels and unified the country and handed over voluntarily to a successor, who seemed to be reforming the country, but now probably more people will be talking about the man who stole the world, unfortunately. But Portugal is remembering him, African countries, Nigeria also, for his role, especially supporting the liberation of the Southwest, Southern Africa.
All right.
So that's
thank you so much for that great analysis, Dr. Sam Mamadi. Is an Arise News analyst and associate professor of law. And of course, our own Professor Abiodun Adeniyi too is a professor and he has helped us to understand Datti Baba-Ahmed very well, having had some working experience with him. We must thank you so much. Well, you're still there. Yeah, we must thank you so much for that analysis. And that's how it's been on this week, the review show of the top stories in the week. We must thank you for joining us. See you next week. I'm Somna Sambo.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Guy, make I run use your phone, Jare.
Guy, where did you do your glow line now?
Baba, calm down now. No be this NIN wahala they give me stress. They don't even block my lines.
But my glow NIN link is simple pass now. Yes, simple. Just dial *109#. Tell where to do. See, give my phone.
What if I don't get NIN before?
Simple. Just go any glow word now. Once you go get your NIN. Yes.
Guy, I get plenty guys who don't link their NIN. Until now, their phone still they block.
Tell them when they go any glow word now. Once they go block their line. Yes, now.
No, I'll make I use your own phone for now. I go start my own later.
Guy, talk plenty talk. You know, so when I link my line, Glow dash me plenty bonus. Yes, now. And when you link your own line, Glow will dash you up to 20,000 naira bonus.
20,000?
Yes, so 20,000 naira bonus.
Yo, fam, take your phone. Remove. Yeah, and they go link my NIN.
This bonus now for both new and existing customers, so
34 million hectares of arable land. Over 200 million people. One nation. Home to Africa's fertilizer company. Dangote Fertilizer. Pure urea fertilizer. With one single-minded passion to feed Nigeria. Every bag is a potential, an aspiration to turn this green nation into the biggest food basket of Africa. Dangote Fertilizer.